For annual phase transition reviews, how do you prove or evidence that special educational needs must be amended and that the provision must be updated, especially when provision is based on professional reports and that local authority don't tend to commission another EP assessment? Do you have to submit a new private report, or will the school commission a report to be able to update the evidence? The LA's EP seems to agree, I think this is agree, that specialist provision is needed at secondary, but they haven't covered this much at all in their report. We hear that all the time, don't we? The LA EP said they would need specialists for secondary. And then when the report comes, doesn't say anything about it. Yeah. So where's someone going to get their evidence from to update their EHCP for secondary transfer? Or anywhere else, any other transition?
The evidence has got to come from professional reports. The local authority will not just pull an EP out of the hat, salt OT, and say to you, okay, you haven't had an update on these reports for 18 months. Here we go. You're going to get some new ones. That is not going to happen. We see EHCPs from children who have gone from primary to secondary. Their EHCP hasn't been updated since they were 5. Local authorities have not provided them with any new professional reports. All we can do by that point is to amend that EHCP to legality. But it's talking about a child who is just starting to read. It's talking about a child who very much younger. It's your responsibility, unfortunately. Local authorities offer a reassessment. A reassessment of needs is completely different. A reassessment of needs will take you back to EHCNA. And if you ask for a reassessment of needs, you're going right back to the beginning again, and you're going right back to all those opportunities to be put back into appeal. So
you're going to miss your phase transition deadline as well. It's going to take 20, if you put in for an new EHC needs assessment, firstly, unless there is a significant change in your child's circumstances. So that means totally new diagnosis that wasn't even suspected beforehand. Something big, really big, that was missed first time round, massive. Then the local authority are going to say no to a reassessment of needs anyway. Secondly, if you ask for a reassessment of needs now, that is going to stall everything for 20 weeks because it is, as Sarah says, a totally new EHC needs assessment. The only times that I've really seen a totally new assessment of needs work really well is, if something significant has happened. So if a child has a long-term medical condition that is debilitating and changes over time. The other is when I've seen children who have been involved in accidents that have changed the presentation of their special education needs, or had a medical crisis that's changed. Yeah. So
once, if you're going to be taking yourself out from phase transition and putting yourself into an EHCA, you are back then, and you won't be classified as being at phase transition, and you'll be a 15-month appeal rather than being able to expedite that ready for your next school placement.
Yeah.
So local authority educational psychologists seem to agree. We get this all the time. Local authority educational psychologists will have a lovely chat with you and say all the right things, and they undoubtedly agree with you. They write their report, and it's very different.
It says it's not always about setting, is it? It's often about one-to-one support or training needs of staff. They'll say one thing and then it just doesn't come through in the report. Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, which I'm not gonna tell you what that is, because I'm absolutely certain that everybody knows why that is. As we all say, your B needs plus F provision equals I. If they water down the needs, you won't have the provision. The school will not have to provide for that. And that's exactly why they do that. It's all about money. It's all about school placement. So do you have to submit new private reports? if you can. Not everybody can, and we absolutely know that. So you need to have a really good look at your EHCP. We would suggest that you take a really good look at your EHCP now and get an overview of any changes that you absolutely know must be made. And you can talk to your school, you can talk to your caseworker, and you can say to them, look at it, it's rubbish. You're talking about when my child was 5.
Yeah.
They're not,
You can also,
they won't, but you've pointed it out, and you know that, and that's what you've got to go to appeal for. But you need to know what you're appealing for.
yeah, you can also get your school to evidence it. Now, the school will sit round a table with you, as you know, for an annual review. And you can get the school are professionals, and you can get the school to evidence the changes that are needed. Sometimes schools can even persuade the next schools, especially if they're going to the mainstream feeder secondary school, the SENCO from that school to come along, and you can work as a 3 together thinking about how the provision needs to be reworded for a secondary school environment. Local authorities aren't always mad keen to take school advice, particularly if it's making some quite significant changes from mainstream settings towards more of a specialist. They might choose to ignore what the school have said, but a judge at tribunal wouldn't. Right? If the only evidence at a tribunal is coming from a school annual review report, which is saying the child needs some significant changes, and that particularly if that SENCO comes along to the tribunal as a witness and the judge can ask them some questions, the tribunal judge is likely, in the absence of any other evidence, to absolutely take on board what they're saying as professional advice. So if you can't afford
the local authority pull out their EP, isn't it?
Yeah, it is when the local authority pull out their EP.
Yeah. An EP at all. They'll bring out the myth that there aren't any. However, if that's all the evidence you've got, and you've got a SENCO that's saying actually mainstream can't meet this child's needs, they need to go to a specialist school, all of a sudden your local authority will magically provide an EP who's going to come along and do a report, and that EP report will trump absolutely anything that your SENCO
that a school says. But remember by that stage that you are in a tribunal, so an EP can't rely on local authority policy in a tribunal. They have actually got to apply the law by that point. So we've seen LAs crack out EPs at this stage when a school has said absolutely small class sizes, specialist provision, specialist staff. Local authority have ignored it. Parents have gone to tribunal. They bring in their own EP. How many times have we seen that EP actually close the case in favour of the parent because they've gone back to the local authority and said, we can't lie. When the judge asks us, does this child need small specialist classes? We are going to have to say yes. And the local authority concede at that point. So
we've seen local authority educational psychologists agree with private ones by that point, but whereas beforehand they were flatly denying that the child needs anywhere near that. But when they are pushed, they all have the same qualification, and the judge is going to hold them to that.